Welcome to Doing the Work podcast, the podcast for advanced Dr. Joe students to gather together to discuss, explore, and learn as we forge the river of change. I am Lorelai, and along with my co-host Amanda, we are grateful to have your time and attention for the next 45 minutes. Today, our guest is Amata. He has been with us for a previous episode where we got to know him, and we are now ready to dive even deeper into a roundtable conversation. So we invite you to listen to part one if you haven't done so already, to just imbibe in this beautiful energy that Amanda and us co-created for our first episode. But before we dive in, we always like to get in coherence so that we can create something really beautiful together. I invite Amanda to lead us into the field, into the world of coherence and learning and friendship.
Thank you, Lorelai. Yeah, let's take a minute and closing our eyes if we're in a safe place and able to do that. And just starting with taking a deep breath into our hearts, feeling that sacred place, our seat of creation, our fourth center, feeling it expand and feeling it grow and integrating with each other's hearts. Continuing to breathe into our hearts, we just set the intention for continuing this inspiring conversation and creating a space of co-creation and love and healing and joy as we share our journeys together. And breathing into those hearts, expanding further out into our audience and inviting them to connect in with us and sending our gratitude and appreciation to them, our listeners, for their support, but also because we are so grateful for this community and so deeply in love with what has come out of this. All right, now coming back, one last exhale. Thank you, Lorelai. Thank you, Amata, for joining us again. We're very excited.
You.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful guidance. And I'm so excited to talk about this with Amata, about the breath and how it's helping us to evolve and better integrate into our world. As I was getting ready for this episode, I remember that the first time I had any awareness of the breath was watching a YouTube TED Talk by this guy called Max Storm, or Strom, something like that. And it was about breath work and grief. And I thought that was really interesting. I had never heard of the relationship between the two. And I was lucky that he was coming to do a workshop in Santa Monica, where I was living, just 3 blocks from my house. And a few weeks after I got to meet him, it was a very interesting experience, of which I completely forgot until today. So I wanted to start the conversation with that. If Amata, you would like to kind of lead this space.
Thank you, Lorelai and Amanda, for having me back. It's great to be back. Love it. So the topic of grief and the breath works. It's very interesting. Just going back to the first podcast that we did, I did mention that there was an extra, if we remember my manifestation story about Cancun and how I had to run out of money before I actually somehow managed to get my way there. There was another element to that story, which I don't really share initially, but then I figured, you know what, maybe I should, because it actually presents another challenge or initiation that I had to go through with it. And so, as you know, I had a dog. Her name was Matilda, and she was a Chihuahua. And when I had my taste of freedom, my first taste of freedom after 17 years of resignation, I also found out not long after that that she was dying, basically. Right? And at the time, it didn't really sink in when they first told me. They didn't say in so many words that she was not dying, but they just said, "Oh, it's going to happen soon." And at that time, I just figured, okay, this was more medication, because she was already having medication for her heart and whatnot, which is common in smaller dogs. So then came, I think it was 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, I heard a cough, and anyway, I took her to the vets, and they just said, "Oh, look, she doesn't have long to go." And I was shocked, and I go, "Look, here's some x-rays. We're going to show you something." So they showed me some x-rays, and there was this black all around her stomach and lungs. And basically they said, oh, look, that's all liquid. And basically she's going to choke to death if nothing, if you don't do anything, right? And I was shocked and everything. And I mean, I knew it was coming. You know it was coming, but you still don't know how to react and whatnot. They basically said, look, just take her home. And I still asked, so how long does she have? They just said not long. They didn't say anything. They just said, just take her home, be with her, but we'll be available for you over the weekend. Now, at that point, I guess it wasn't sinking in and all that stuff. I was still in shock. So I took her home, bawling my eyes out and everything. And I just knew I was out of whack. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to react. But that feeling of grief and sadness was overwhelming. And I knew, when you become aware of yourself after doing the work, you know when you're no longer feeling in incoherence, right? I was definitely incoherent, but I didn't know what to do other than blessing my energy centers and doing the breath, right? So I just knew that if my brain is incoherent, then I'm going to be incoherent. So maybe the answer would be, okay, let me get myself back into homeostasis, because now I'm in survival mode, right? Who knows what I'm thinking and doing and all that stuff other than crying. And so I did blessing of the energy centers with her by my side for about 3 or 4 hours straight. It was only after that I noticed that I started shifting back to homeostasis, and then all these answers started coming into my head. And basically the revelation was this. It was like, all right, Amata, look, Matilda has been your trigger, your rock for 13 years. When you look at her, when you think of her, it's always been unconditional love, joy, happiness, right? Be careful here. Do you want to really associate or hardwire the emotion of grief and sadness, right? Because that's what's going to happen. That tends to happen as well. When something traumatic like this happens, we automatically, this is my understanding anyway, we start to associate that emotion to them. And if I'm not careful, I can start associating sadness and grief to Matilda.
Yeah, because we pay more attention when something is threatening our survival or so on. We pay more attention. So whatever we see, we make those associations in our brains.
Yeah. And then I came to the understanding, and then I go, oh, you know what? I get it now, especially when, a lot of people say when this happens, they go, oh, I'm not sure if I can have another pet, or they choose not to because they don't want to go through that grief again. And prior to this, I remember saying to myself before doing the work, right, Matilda is important to me, to the point where I remember saying this to people. I said, oh, if Matilda was to die, that's right, so would I. And by that, I mean an aspect. I wasn't going to, bet myself, right? It was just a part of me was going to die. And that was my belief at the time. Then doing the work, I just realized, if we're all energy, energy doesn't actually die. It just changes. It transforms into a thing, right? But the revelation that I got out of doing the blessing of the energy centers was it's okay to grieve, process it however you need to, but just be mindful of your emotions and your associations, right? So then I said to myself, okay, you know what? Am I going to do this? Am I going to reassociate the feeling of love, unconditional love as well, to sadness and grief? She showed me what unconditional love is, and I want to remember that. So I said to myself, because also I started thinking back of, I wish I'd been more present. I wish I spent more time with her and all that stuff, and all the guilt as well came up. And I was like, no, you know what? You're thinking in the past now. Let's go in the present, right? Think of the now. And I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to be with her now, present, for as long as however it needs to be. I made that decision with such firm intention, right? And then I just went, I'm going to be with her. Poured myself a glass of red. I just sat with her for the whole weekend, right? And so there you go. I spent my time with her, and a month later, I took her back for a normal checkup. A month. And because I didn't think of anything of it. I mean, the next day she was fine, right? Other than the only thing I actually really did was just change my mindset and perception of how the situation was panic. Anyway, I took her back to the vet, and the nurses looked at me, and they saw Matilda, and they said, "Oh, Matilda." I said, "Yeah." And then the vet goes, "Oh, Matilda." And I went, "Yeah." They all looked at me and they said, "She's still here." I go, "Yes, I know. I've been with her for." They go, "Oh, we did not expect." They expected her to pass that very weekend, right? And so And by the way, I didn't even have the thought of, healing her or anything and whatnot and all that stuff. But when they actually reacted in that way, I made a little joke. I said, "Oh, it's just a good testament of what a good father I am, eh?" But in the dark mind, I thought to myself, "Oh, did I heal her in some aspect?" Because they showed me the X-ray. There was so much liquid. So I didn't ask for another X-ray at that point, right? I just wanted to, I'm going to leave that in the unknown and just take this with me. And so there it was. So that was fantastic at the ending. But then a few months later, I think it was all divine timing. Just by changing my reaction and response to all that and just putting myself back into homeostasis, it gave me a little bit more time for what was about to come. Right, Matilda gave me more time. And so 2 weeks before Cancun, that I was supposed to fly off to Cancun, I heard the cough, and I don't know how I was to explain, but I just knew then that was the time that I was to make the decision, to choice to let her go, right? And then I took her, and they basically said, "Look, we're surprised that she's even she's given you a good few
That was
months."
almost another year, right? From February to December.
Yeah. So I made the choice. They just said, even with my understanding and all that stuff, I marked the date, and I thought I was prepared and everything. I spent my moments with her. She had a final shower. She had the shower. I overfed her certain things and all that stuff. And when the day came, I thought I was prepared, because you wouldn't have thought anything was wrong until you heard a cough, right? She was still her bubbly self, energetic, but I think it's just how Chihuahuas are. And she didn't want to be there. I could tell, maybe because I was there, but when they did the thing and they had dropped, everything just went out the window, like all the work, everything, it was like a switch, and I just wailed so much, like a banshee, all that stuff, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and all that stuff, all those emotions came through. But then there was also these odd flicker in and out of clarity, and just know that she's fine, and then I'll go back to crying, and this was all happening in this, split seconds, just bang bang. But as part of doing the work, I understood that she might not be here now, but energetic, because we're all energy, right? She's just out in the field. She's transitioned into the quantum. That's my understanding of it now. And that's why processing grief for death, I don't see it as the end anymore. I just understand it as a change. It's the start of something new. And when, in the previous podcast, I spoke about reading a lot about on spiritual texts and what that stuff, they all have the same sort of concept and idea that they're not really gone. We're eternal divine beings. So that helped. Doing the work helped me process the grief a lot quicker than I thought that I would have. Because and also, again, I say divine timing, because if I had gone to Cancun and she was still there, I probably would have thought about her and worried about her a lot. But it all just, I think it just had to happen for that. And so that is my perception on processing grief now. But there was more to it. A few more months go by, and I said to myself, you know what, I'll wait. I always knew I was going to adopt or get another pet, right? It was just a matter of when. So I was in this meditation once, and I was centering on my heart and breathing in, just like what we did earlier in the. And I got this massive download, this message, and basically it was Matilda. She was saying, "Oh, look, hey, you're okay. I'm okay. I may not be there now. I'm not really gone unless you believe me to be, which I know you don't. I may not be here now with you, but I'm in all the other realities and timelines where you need me the most. Just remember one thing. If you love yourself and others as much as you love me, then everything will be okay." Yeah, I just started crying again. I was like, "Come on, okay, thank you." And I realized then as well that, sometimes where we think that we've processed something, but sometimes we've pushed it all the way in the back of my mind. After that experience, I knew that I had processed it, right? What is it? The memory without the emotional charge is now wisdom. I can now look at it from another viewpoint. Because normally when I share, before that, when I would share Matilda, I would automatically just start crying and all that stuff. But now I can share the story, and just there's another. There might be a little bit of tears here and there, but not as bad as before. But so
That's what Dr. Joe calls
yeah,
wisdom, when you are able to recall an event without the emotional charge. That's wisdom. And as
yeah,
you were talking, I want to talk about two things. One, the other day in my yard, I found this little bird that was dead the first time that happened. And as I was trying to think how to deal with it, because I'm such a city person, like I just almost like I don't know what to do with it. I was thinking about how Dr. Joe was talking about the potentials of perceptions and so on. And he, in one of the retreats, he said, for example, a hawk can see a heat trail of a mile from a mile up in the sky. So the potential to see a heat trail from a mile away exists even in this world, in on Earth right now. We just don't have it developed, perhaps. But just when he was explaining about the pineal gland and how pigeons also have similar things that guide them, so the potential to receive things is there even in this plane. We just haven't tapped into it. So as I was dealing with this bird, I thought maybe that is why certain forms of energy come in different ways. Like, it's great to be a human and choose where to place your attention, but other forms of life have other experiences, have access to other things, and perhaps that's something that they want to experience. And then when you were sharing your story about the vet and saying goodbye to Matilda, I remember that the first time I spontaneously did a go love was for strangers. As when I was driving back from work, there is a vet place on my way, and I saw this couple, and she was crying really hard, and he was embracing her. I just saw it for like a split second, but I just had this understanding of what happened. I took me 3 more minutes to get home, and then I did a go love for them, and that was the first time I did a go love for strangers. I think, I mean, just animals are that the unconditional love and the sort of things they draw from us. It's so amazing. I know Amanda I have no animals besides my two boys, but sometimes I have to hurt them and just potty train them and all of those things. But Amanda has a lot of animals, so I'm sure she has something interesting to add.
Yeah, I do. I have a farm of, well, cats, but other animals as well. Thank you for sharing that. These animals are so precious. I've come a long way, I have to say. I remember growing up, I had a big family and we had dogs. And it was hard to take care of dogs when you have a big family. And thinking like, I'm never going to have pets growing up. Like that just doesn't seem responsible. But eventually I had to get a dog, and I had some cats, but cats are just kind of, they take care of themselves. But yeah, I eventually got this dog, and, and I won't go into the whole thing, but I remember when it was his time to leave this plane, it suddenly just hit me how much he had taught me. And I didn't understand. I'd never reflected on that before. I think I had been in the work a couple years. I just had never really put that into perspective. But I remember the day that he was saying goodbye, which he literally like came and said goodbye to us, and then he disappeared. I live out in the country. So I knew he was getting close. So I was looking for maybe a way to transition him at home or something. But he kind of just took things into his own paws and said goodbye to us and left for the forest. I think my kids understood this better than what I did about where he was going to be and where, he's still with us and energetically this imprint. So, but I really am fascinated with animals, and like what you were saying, Lorelei, like what is their energetic imprint? To me, they feel like angels. So I'm kind of like realizing like, okay, I'm still processing Joe.
Mm.
Because I'm just like, Okay. Yeah,
It's
that
good
was
Amanda doesn't have like an I was
oh.
trying to teach my kids about just the wonders of possibilities, and
Mhm.
we watched this beautiful documentary I really recommend on I think Apple TV about octopus. I think it's called The Secret Life of the Octopus, and it's narrated by Paul Jude, so it's really beautiful. But anyway, I did not know, did you guys know octopuses have 3 hearts, and like all of their body is a brain? I mean, isn't it amazing? And in context of this work, what would that be like to have 3 hearts and your body is the brain, basically, and
Which is
everything else
octopus
is
doing
just
the
the
breath.
feel around, you know?
You'll just be the breath if you're an octopus.
Yeah, yeah, with 3 hearts. Oh,
Just
that's a lot of love to give.
yeah. Just some hearts and brain.
On the topic of what you both mentioned, having the energetic imprint and whatnot. I forgot about this, but what I came to realize as well after that experience was so once I had processed it and realized, oh yeah, I've done it, I actually adopted 2 other dogs, which I knew I was gonna do. And there were 2 senior dogs actually. They 2 of them went at 14. They're both when I got them, they're both 14. And so and the other unknown or wild thing was I ended up on a TV show as a result of it as well. But so even though there were 2 different dogs, the thing is, um, Matilda's energy was so strong, and that I was so aware and really believe that she's still around. Is that her energetic footprint or the embodiment? Like, let's just say Matilda is my embodiment of kind of conditional love. So the 2 dogs that I got, I started to see Matilda's mannerisms and energy. So they would be lying where Matilda would used to lie, or they would have certain habits and all that stuff. So um, it's just that she's all around me and everywhere, right? It doesn't have to be that body specifically. She can be represented by another um, 3D creature or reality or whatever. And that was what was fascinating to me. I go, oh, well, that's what Matilda used to do and all that stuff. And then in the previous podcast, I also shared that I recently went through another thing, and that was because one of them had actually passed recently as well. And then I can see her energy and thing as well in the mannerisms and sort of transfer over to her sister as well. And I can see it in the eyes or whatever. Anyway, it's really fascinating. So energetically, they're always there around. That's what I believe. And they don't have to necessarily, well, this is my understanding, they don't now necessarily have to be reincarnated as a new creature. It's how I'm perceiving their energy. Because remember, that energy to me, that's my bond. How that becomes embodied, I guess, is depends on how I perceive it and what my beliefs are.
I wonder in this respect, and again, just it's funny, this podcast, we get to wonder without being experts in anything, but we do get to wonder about all sorts of big subjects. And I'm sure it's similar for you guys, but when I first heard about that heart math study of the boy and the dog, that was for me so revealing. You know what I'm talking about? When they are measuring the coherence, there's this boy and he has a dog he loves, and they put the dog in another room, and they are teaching the boy how to connect his heart to the dog, basically. And then they're measuring the coherence, the heart rate variability on both the boy and the dog, and then they see how they end up synchronizing even though they're in different rooms. And that was kind of like a clear proof of how we interfere in each other's fields, so to say, and how we synchronize like metronomes. And I am wondering if a possibility of something that happens, because even if, just like with the leaf that gets cut, right, even though the matter itself disappears, but the energy is there. I mean, we saw it with the leaf, the body of light of the leaf, the imprint of the light is still there. So I don't think it's a big stretch of the imagination. Again, without being an expert on anything, but I like to ponder on it. I could see how there is also an imprint of the energy. If you can see the light, there should be energy as well. And so when we do hard breath, when we do the heart coherence, like the boy and the dog did, it wasn't like he was doing it to the matter of the dog, the body of the dog, so to say, right? It was the energetic field of the dog, which seems to be not entirely dependent on the body itself. So I wonder if every time you think of Matilda or you feel her presence, you are getting into a sort of heart coherence with her field. Even if it's not true, I like to believe it is because it
Well,
makes me feel better.
I mean, with the things that I was wondering about as well, is it true or not? I don't know. But for me, it can be as real as how well my thoughts are. I guess going back a little back when you mentioned how the pineal gland and how certain animals, like the pigeon and they're able to home in, and what was the other one? The hawk, able to see the heat trail. Um, when you mentioned that, I was thinking about our pineal gland, and you asked the question, oh, I wonder if we could do that as well. And I would say yes, because I have had those moments where the pineal gland turns on, and what happened, at least in my experience, was that I was no longer using my senses to experience reality. So you know how I started to become aware that I can actually feel the energy and or the
I
frequencies.
just want to
Mm,
stop here for
mm,
a second. I think
mm,
it's so important what you said, because we know that the only way we get plugged into this 3D reality is through our senses.
mm,
So if we unplug from the regular senses that keep us in this limitation, then it makes sense that you need different senses in order to plug into different possibilities, because the whole point of the senses of the 3D is to keep us in the 3D. Like
mm.
that's the whole reason they're here.
This almost makes me wonder. This is kind of making me think of something because, like cats for sure. I don't know if dogs can too. They can see infrared. They have like a wider visual spectrum than what we do. I'm like, are they maybe straddling dimensions all the time? I don't know. Because I mean, I don't know if your dog ever did that or dogs ever do this, but they're like looking in a corner, like like
Yeah,
something's
yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
yeah. For sure,
Yeah,
I think. I mean,
yeah.
again, with my expertise, say for sure. But I think that it's great to have a brain, but it's also limiting. So if their brain is different, it's possible that, yes, it's limiting them from speaking, perhaps, but it must it must give them other possibilities, because even our brain, right? If you don't have sight, for example, that real estate that would be used for sight moves into, let's say, hearing. And so now your senses for hearing are amazing as compared to a regular person. So I think definitely animals must have the same thing, because you lose some, you win some, right? So they must be winning on some spectrum.
Yeah. So when I speak about the pineal gland turning on, then we start to, as Dr. Joe says, the pineal gland is like that transducer. And when it's turned on, you start to, like a TV antenna, you get in frequencies, and then our pineal gland interprets it in different way. So that becomes, as let's just say, for argument's sake, that like another sense, the sixth sense. So, and my experience with this is that I've actually, I've had sort of these experiences where it has been turned on, and what I believe happened, especially after reading Dr. Joe's work on quantum physics and whatnot, I get a greater understanding of these. That's what really leads into the mystical experience. When your pineal gland turns on, it's because you're getting all these other frequencies and you're interpreting stuff that you've never seen before because it's outside our five senses.
Dr. Joe is saying this, how
Mm,
if you kind of know where you're going is the predictable, right? So
mm,
if the pineal gland turns on, are com- you wouldn't be able to perceive that information with the limiting senses that you had before. But he also says the possibility is there. Like, before people knew that the earth is round and there's gravitation still existed. We just weren't aware of it. So I think that it's not always creating something, because your pineal gland is already there. We're just kind of seeing beyond the veil, maybe.
mm. I guess I could share one other. I'm good at stories, aren't I? About a pineal gland experience I sort of had. So and it was funny too because I was reading "Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself" when this occurred. So my pineal gland was turned. Well, actually, I didn't even know at the time, right? So I was reading the book, and I was having difficulty tracking the words for some reason. And I was wondering what's going on? Why am I having trouble interpreting this book? I've read this book thousands of times. I understand this, don't I? So I kept going, and then to the point where I thought, okay, maybe there's a divine being next to me. It felt like someone was there next to me. And so then I go, oh, this must be what it feels like to be a supernatural genius like Einstein, you know, when you get sort of eccentric. And so I started talking to this thinking, believing that there's an entity next to me. I said, oh, you know, you're not making it easy for me to read, right? So I kept going, and then I go, okay, you know what, I'm just going to close the book and just relax because it was doing my head in for some reason. And then this thought came to me. He goes, what if you were just downloading, right, information or absorbing information? Oh, huh? So then I looked at the book and I realized that the words were changing. And I thought it was just highlighting specific words for me to read. But then I realized if I turned the page, it didn't matter. The words were always changing. And essentially what was happening, or what I believe what was happening, was I was reading the whole book on the one page. So you know, the book is the 3D embodiment of that information. But my pineal gland was so switched on that it was absorbing the frequencies. And so I was, instead of getting the book in a 3D
This is the
thing,
telepathy tapes,
yeah,
right?
something
That's
very
what
similar.
they
Yeah.
were talking about, how this child would receive the whole book. It's
Mm.
not like he was just reading as the mother was reading. He just got the whole book. I just love your stories. Like, do you have more of these? Go on.
I do
Showers,
actually.
books. What else? Have anything with
Well-
food?
Food? No. Well,
That's an
okay,
interesting
maybe-
question, Lorelai. What's your food mystical story?
Yeah, I wonder.
Okay,
I wonder
so-
what's like. What else is out there to eat?
Is this because Dr. Joe was in the refrigerator between the cucumbers?
cucumber. Yeah, it was something very similar to that. Well, I don't know if this is food related. I did have one experience where, in this split few seconds, I think that the divine spoke to me and said, "Oh, hey, do you want to know how powerful you really are?" And I went, "Okay." And then I started to become aware, or I just knew of how our brain interpreted sound and taste. I knew how much blood was going through me, what the temperature of my body was, and all that. So I pretty much just knew all that in 1 or 2 seconds. It just showed me. And it was so overwhelming that I started to cry, like happy tears. I go, oh my God, this must be what the divine feels like. Like, this must be wholeness. Just knowing how everything was being interpreted, and touch and sound and taste as well. I remember tasting. I go, oh, because I actually had, funny, because I actually had a piece of cheese, and I love cheese, right? And
Oh my God,
and
I love cheese. This
yeah,
is
it
my kids
was
always ask me, would you rather eat this or cheese? And my answer is always cheese.
cheese. Yeah,
Oh, I'm wait. I love.
I tasted every bit of it, every molecule and everything, and I also understood how it was being, translated, how the brain was thinking, and then I cried, and then it just disappeared, and like, oh
That
man,
is
trying
so
to remember that
amazing.
feeling.
If you're thinking about it, I think the body and the way it works is probably the most amazing wonder of the universe, right?
Mm.
Like, all these very super complex things are happening all at once without us having to do anything. So it must be the most alike to everything, everywhere, all at once kind of thing.
So I hope that answered your mystical question.
Cheese mystic. I'm here all day.
I'm from Wisconsin, so we have a lot of cheese here. We're like the
Ooh.
number one cheese.
Oh my God, I love it. You know the 70s show? Hello, Wisconsin.
Oh, yes.
Just saw a car at the Whole Foods the other day that the plate was cow CEO. And I thought that was a lot for LA.
Cow's CEO. Is that the farmer?
I remember my workplace discovering my love for cheese, because they would bring in, cheese snacks and stuff to ride us to work or whatever, right? And no one ever eats the cheese. So I'm just like, the whole wheel. So I just went, okay, I'll just take it. And I laughed because I just ate it like it was an apple, And my manager was just like, what on earth? Like, oh, I love cheese. What can I say?
This is the best conversation, guys. Like, who else is a podcast about meditation? I love talking about cheese and chickens.
I do love cheese too, actually. It's really funny though. But I have to say it. Really love a good aged cheese. Oh.
Yeah. I can't even describe why. It's just one of those things where I just I really enjoy it,
Yeah.
So did it taste differently when you had that experience?
Yeah,
And how did your relationship with cheese change as a result of your musical experience?
I think it's amazing because after having an experience like that, you slowly come back and you start to realize, well, I started to realize how many things I was filtering out, and I guess it's crazy because, when you hear a certain sound or music, there's all these other things or tones and with taste, there was all these tastes. And when you go back to quote unquote normal, it's because I no longer feel that sensation. It's because my brain filtered it out for whatever reason, And then I'm just thinking, how do I reset myself or unfilter that back? Because I want to have that experience again or just experience it that way again. I don't want to filter that. I love that. So that's the question I've been asking and trying to work with myself is, because that's what the brain does, right? It just filters stuff so that, otherwise, let's just say our life is a constant mystical experience and you're just getting information. It's just so overwhelming that you wouldn't know what to do. You may even forget. Yeah. You may even forget to, let's just say, how the body itself just regulates itself in terms of blood flow and heart beating and all that stuff. Let's just say you have to really be responsible for that. But I was focused on cheese and I forget to do my heartbeat. Should I beat my heart or eat the cheese?
Which part did you filter out from the cheese? I mean,
yeah. Well, I can't tell. All I know is let's just put it this way: when I ate the cheese, feelings and I felt I'll just say it, aroused. Let's put it that way. It was strong, and I was like, "Wow, that tastes so." Oh,
were you having a
American
cheesegasm?
Pie vibes? American Pie.
Yeah, right. It was orgasmic. Let's put it that. It was one of those. That's if I had to put a word to it.
There's a plug for doing Dr. Joe's work if there ever was one. Your cheese experience will become orgasmic.
Yeah.
I have to share.
That'll be my testimony on stage.
Yeah, please share that when you get on stage.
Everyone will be hitting the Cancun buffet. Oh, which cheese should I try?
Yeah. I wanted to share though because I had it not with food, but a similar experience coming out. I think I just had done I remember it was like a random, you know what, I got some time. I think I'm just going to sit down and do a Botech. And I came out of it and I remember just staring at my window because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it was my backyard, but it's sparkling and it's so gorgeous. And I mean, and I'm yards from it, but I felt like I could see everything in my backyard. I could see all of the leaves and I had this complete overwhelming feeling of what a miracle it is that there's trees in my backyard. And I was crying and it was phenomenal. I don't even know how to describe it, but I feel like in movies where they're kind of do a dreamscape and there's this very ethereal feeling. And I just sat there. I was like, this is amazing. And I'm crying and it was just beautiful. But yeah, I know what you mean. You kind of want to be okay, I want this to be how I see my everything, my everything that I see, experience.
I just want to draw attention to two things as we're getting closer to wrapping up. I want to leave people with this sort of tidbit that we all uncovered here. That on one hand, there is the tuning into potential you are not always readily receiving, such as the trees. And I love, there's a book that came out maybe 10 years ago called The Secret Life of Trees. It's so beautiful, about how they communicate with each other, and it's really beautiful. And I remember I wasn't yet in the work, but I was doing some other meditations, and I remember thinking, I wish I could tune into that, to that energy of the trees. But then there's something Amata said that I think it's equally important, which is the potential to not tune out certain things. You know, the potential, like Amanda also mentioned in other episodes we recorded, of being like a child that doesn't tune it out because it's familiar, because he already had that. So those are both potentials that are beautiful to contemplate.
It almost had me thinking, I've been kind of thinking about this a little bit too. And it kind of actually, the telepathy tapes kind of started probably triggering this in my brain of this new evolution of what humans are possibly evolving into. Like, is there a potential that we are expanding our senses so that that can become a part of our reality on a regular basis and not become a disruptive thing, you know, where, you know, I want to sit and stare at the trees instead of feed my kids lunch kind of thing. But I think it's a potential. I feel like I've actually kind of somewhat integrated that sometimes, like a kind of glimpse of like, what would it be like if I saw everybody and everything
I
with
really
that true
believe
level?
in that.
Yeah.
That, and someone in the community that is a researcher also talked about this, how meditation is increasing our bandwidth. But I have been thinking a lot when COVID came, about how much we changed the way we interact because we have these devices. So our brains are just never had to be processing as much as they do now. So it makes sense to me that evolutionary something has to happen, because everything is so different from how it used to be. Like, we cannot exist like this. And then when COVID started, and I don't have a theory on COVID or anything, but I was thinking that how does the body itself, the organ, evolve? And viruses, microbes are the one thing that are the oldest forms. So there must be some actual thing that gets inside and modifies you know, your architecture so that you can adjust to your environment. So I think that what we are doing, I'm hoping, that's what I see myself as being, as sort of at the edge of evolution here, because yes, the world has changed and we're processing a lot and everything has changed. But what we are doing by doing the work is allowing ourselves to decide how we want our 3D architecture to be changed, to process whatever happens, as opposed to being constantly manipulated from the outside of your attention span is smaller now because of this, or your thumbs just oppose in different weird ways because you're always holding a phone, or your throat is always choked because you're looking down.
Yeah, I think it just, this whole, the conversation that's going to be going on, it just reminds me of what Dr. Jess says. We don't see things how they are. We see things how we are. And just going back to the point, you know, tune into the potential of what to filter in and out. And yes, you're right, definitely, with the occurrence of technology, and I work in IT, we have been deferring a lot of our brain power to that, and we just becoming more and more unconscious, and it's coming, like, I admit, like, for the longest time, I relied on technology a lot, and it was only after, you know, diving into the work that I realized, wow, I haven't been using my brain at all. And even when diving into Jim Quick as well, I started, you know what, I'm going to start writing again. Actually writing, you know, notes, which Dr. Joe has recently also, you know, if you go to the advanced and all that stuff, you guys look, journal, notebook and all that stuff, because whatever you write is, what's it?
It triggers the autonomic, it triggers something because you're doing it automatically.
Oh,
yeah, so I'm doing a lot of that now. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. What is it? It's a muscle memory type thing. Yeah.
Something interpret response, or I can't remember.
What a great conversation to end. We started with talking about animals and cheese, and now we're talking about the future of humanity and IT.
We got this.
Everybody relax.
Yeah.
We got it.
Hey, Dr. Joe, come in and throw in your thoughts. We're waiting for you to come on. That's the possibility that we'll be tuning in for.
Yes, Dr. Joe, come. Dr. Joe, hey. We did do a bit of singing before, so
I'm sure he has some thoughts on cheese too.
Yeah.
Definitely wine.
I mean, it goes so well with wine. You know, in
Yes.
Spain, that's all we have is cheese and wine. So
Yeah.
that's how we'll
And some
bribe
bread.
him. Amata will bring like a big roll. No, Amanda will bring a big roll of cheese because she's in Wisconsin.
I can bring the cheese
Yeah.
in more way than
Who
one.
moved my cheese?
Yeah.
Oh,
Who's eating all of
yeah.
that? Mm.
So
yes.
I wonder if I should do a tuning into the cheese.
Cheesy potential.
The cheesy potential. Oh my god, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. But what an expansive conversation. Let us connect to our hearts as we are getting ready to wrap up things. Please close your eyes if it feels comfortable to you and allow your breath to come into your heart and expand all over your body, feeling into the possibilities of completely perceiving the world in a new, unlimited way, of connecting our hearts and tuning into this beautiful energy that we created here today. So we create a big dome of love and friendship and laughter. And if it helps, you can visualize a big cheese. Oh, it's so beautiful to share this space with friends, and we are extending this beautiful energy to our listeners, future, past, and present, all in this beautiful timeline that our community is sharing. We are so grateful for the opportunity to learn. We're so grateful to Dr. Joe for always evolving our model of understanding and for giving us the chance to tune into his teachings by coming to the retreats, tuning into Dr. Joe Live, giving us a taste of what it's like to come together as an individual to strengthen the whole. We are wholeness in parts and part of the whole. And one more big breath. Let's draw in this energy from the field into our hearts and spread it to all the cells in our body. Getting ready to open our eyes and get back to this time and space and being the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you so much. This was a beautiful experience, Amata. We appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to share as well.
No,
I
thank
hope
you. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No,
No,
thank
no.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.